Hey, everybody. Welcome to Popular Unknown Paintball Live. And this is my question and answer period. Unfortunately, I don't know what I did or how I did it or didn't do it, but the chats that I was seeing last week, I am not seeing this week on the chat forum. So I'm going to have to fix that for next week. Now, that being said, if you do send a chat onto YouTube, for some reason, it is popping up on my laptop and I'm hearing it in my ears. Hopefully, you guys aren't hearing the whole ding-a-ling, but I am hearing it. So I will see it. But yeah. So anyway, uh, terribly sorry about the delay and not being live yesterday. I was trying to arrange a guest to join me, but with the new software, I haven't got everything fully figured out yet. This is a really steep learning curve. But I wanted to do a question and answer period, and I invited a lot of my friends, followers, listeners. I don't know how you want to work it, but I invited everybody to send questions in at on my Facebook account, and I got a few questions, so I'm going to fire through them. It's been a difficult week here at the McGuire household. There was a loss in the extended family, which it is what it is. Life happens, you know what I mean? But yeah, so that kind of contributed to last night. I can't be helped, but it is what it is. And so we're here now. So, but I wanted to make sure that I go live every week. It is, I don't want to call it my New Year's resolution because it's not, but it's along that lines. My New Year's resolution is to be better. Um, and I mean exactly that. Be better. Be a better friend, be a better dad, be a better person, be healthier, be more on the podcast, be like stop doing things that aren't moving me forward and stop wasting time and stop making excuses. And unfortunately, my life is just one big ball of excuses, which I'm just not proud of. But in any case, we got a message over here. It says from Robert, says, just glad to see you back. We can't wait for that wow factor. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. But I just be better. Do you know what I mean? And so working on this. And quite frankly, I'm pretty happy with how the quality of the camera is looking with just using the webcam. I'm not keen on everything behind me and how it's set up. I mean, everything behind me I love, but I don't know, it just kind of looks trashy and I'm not happy about that. Also, I'm not happy with how I have the camera set up. I used to have it on a boom mount, so now every time I touch the table, it's like Kong is coming and he's about to fight Godzilla. Ah! So anyway, that's got to get fixed too. That's right up there on the to be done soon situation. So, in any case, had a thought and lost it. Yeah. So, in any case, I'm going to make sure that every week I put out a little video as I get everything rolling. So, I promised a question and answer period, and that's what I'm going to get into. I'm not promising this is going to be a long show, but who knows? We'll see how it goes. I just don't think I want to listen to myself talk for that long. Um, oh, and one more thing before we get into the questions. If you can, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Please like and please just watch the show for a grand total of 60 seconds or any shows that I make. Just watch it for 60 seconds because that counts as a view. And once we get views going, you know, Okay, now that's weird. So that chat that I said that I couldn't get into, I'm now seeing I'm now seeing chats coming from. Okay, so YouTube is weird. Anyway, moving on. Let's get to the questions. And again, please like, please subscribe. I'm not saying you like this show. I just want it for the metrics down the road. Once we get rolling, I'd like to get over 1,000 people, and I'd like to, because that opens up options within YouTube. So let's get to the questions. I'm gonna just zip over here, and forgive me if it takes a moment because I'm actually looking through my mic thing to get to the. I'm looking through my mic to actually see my screen. Okay, so first question I got is from Connor, Australia, and it says, "Do you wear pants while on the show asking for a friend?" Yes, yes, I do. And actually, as a general rule, I am always wearing the same pants because they're just so darn comfortable. And they are from Intensity. Actually, this jersey's Intensity as well. I don't know if you can see that, but one second. Let me just show you the pants here because these are the joggers that I got from Intensity and I love them. Woohoo! Showed a little leg. All right. Now, so that is the first question. Second question comes from Rich PB, and he said, "Why are you so cute?" Well, you see, I just am. I had a nice egotistical reply for that, and I just decided it sounded really, really stupid. So, why am I so cute? Canadian. That must be it. We'll just go with that. It's the politeness, it's the humor, it's the blue eyes. But yeah, let's go with Canadian. All right. And Sean Halpin says, "What is it you have against VM68s?" Well, let's get started, shall we? First of all, in my opinion, they're not VM68s, they're PMI3s because that's what they were originally called. That's what they came out as. That's what they were marketed as. And then when PMI and Benjamin Sheridan had a beef, whatever, they changed it from being called the PMI3 to the VM68. And quite frankly, I think that's just dumb and that irritates me to no end. But that's not why I hate them. It's just a little extra piece. Why I do not like PMI3s is because A, they weigh about as much as a brick. And when you consider that I've got a whole bunch of Wargame product, autocockers on the wall, you know I'm used to heavy guns. But the PMI3 that I had, by the way, serial number 498 or 497. I can't quite remember. I've got it written down somewhere. But I had one of the very first 500 paintball guns made, and I traded in my Nightmare competition short barrel or sold it to get the PMI3 because I was able to get the PMI3 at a deal because the field I was working at the time, the gentleman that owned the field, he was selling PMI products. Excuse me. And so I was able to get one of these semi-autos at a really good deal. And at that time, there were only really 3 semi-autos out there. There was the 68 Special, which ran on liquid CO2, and I didn't like that because I didn't like the big clouds of smoke as it was being fired. There was the Golden Eagle, which that thing was just by Brass Eagle, and that thing was just complete crap. Very first one I saw, the first shot, the barrel literally flew off it. And, I mean, the gun was this long, the barrel was this long, the tank was, I think, 3.5 ounces or 4 ounces, and then I had a little 45 loader on the top. And this is on a semi-automatic paintball gun. Like, are you kidding me? So, anyway, so then there was the PMI 3s that was available in my area at the time. I'm not trying to say what was released first. That's just these are what were my options. So I got the PMI 3 and I thought this is really cool because I saw the pictures in the magazines of the tank out the back underneath the the frame, and a couple of my teammates had, or anyway, I was excited. Problem with the PMI 3 that I couldn't stand was that the tank actually came out underneath the barrel. Um, sorry, I'm having a hard time getting used to this camera. So what would happen is when you would rapid fire with all the cooling and stuff, um, the tank, so the barrel was only about 9 inches. I forget the exact length, and the cooling would cause the tank to come up. So literally, paintballs would break off the tip of your uh, tank when you were shooting. And it had this real weird katong, katong, katong sound because of this massive spring. The whole thing was like a tank. And it was just so annoying to play with, especially when all of a sudden the tank started lifting up and you were, if you tried to hold the gun at a normal level, because you've got the tank in front of you, if you try to shoot up a hill a little bit, all of a sudden now you're putting in tons of liquid CO2. So the gun's just banging and barking and just shaking like crazy. And I'm used to real firearms and I'm used to paintball guns. And I will tell you, paintball guns should not shake that much, which is another beef of mine. Paintball guns don't have recoil. I know, not anything worth mentioning. The guns will shake from the stuff flying in and out, but the actual recoil, I don't like that. I don't buy it. I know what people are arguing with me, and by all means, we've had this argument for 3 decades now. A few more decades of this argument doesn't matter to me. Fire a 12 gauge shotgun that has a recoil. Paintball guns do not. That's my take, and I can't be reasoned with regards to that. In any case, this gun just shakes like crazy. It's got these giant, massive metal um, hammer and bolt and everything in them. Oh, and that's another thing. In order to change the velocity in that, you had to stick a giant rod down the barrel and twist it. Or you had to unscrew the bolts on the side and move the valve so that you had a different size hole depending on how it was going to shoot. So you would literally have to change the valve set, like you'd rotate the valve, which led to stripped valves, broken O-rings, blah, blah, blah. It was just everything about that gun was annoying. Just to add insult to injury, everybody says that the PMI 3 VM68 is the most reliable thing ever. It's not. I had to send my gun in twice. First time, the actual pins that held the trigger assembly, they bent. So I had to send the gun back to the States to have it repaired because you couldn't just get the parts. There wasn't paintball technicians like there are now. Like, it's not like you have uh, Peng from California or Jake from Bearded Works, or you'd have local people that could tinker with your gun a bit, but if a part broke, it broke. So that was the first mistake. And then I got it back. Then I went playing again, and I literally broke the hammer on the VM68. I broke the hammer. So, in a blowback paintball gun, or at least I assume you know about blowback paintball guns, although we're going back quite a while. The hammer on a blowback paintball gun has an O-ring um, where it comes forward. So when the air blows the hammer back, the O-ring catches it, slides it back. Well, the actual metal around the O-ring actually broke and bent in. So I had to send it back a second time. So that is annoying to clean, annoying to adjust velocity, weighs a ton. Paintball guns bounce off the air tank. The pins broke in the trigger. The hammer broke. I never, ever, ever want to use another PMI 3/VM68 ever again. They're just dead to me. Are they the worst paintball gun? No, they're just the worst paintball gun I've ever personally owned. Although maybe I would argue that a couple PMI Piranhas were, and I'm talking about the blowback PMI Piranhas, the ones that were the spider clones. I've had a few really, really nasty one of those. Um, I'm seeing messages from Explore Paintball. It says, "Hey, good to see you back live. Thank you so much." And you ever see a PGI Mayhem? I probably have, but it's not coming to me right this second. I am terribly sorry, but I will look that up and maybe we can talk about that next week. So that's something to think about. Man, every time I put my hands down on this and bouncing the camera, that's really irritating me. So I do apologize, guys. That will not happen again next week. That is my top priority for next week is get that camera to stop shaking like Godzilla. All right, moving on. Had my fun. All right, so Sean, I hope you enjoyed that. And all right. Brandon Burnett said VM68s are the best worst markers. I love them, yet I also hate them. I just hate them. Um, they spawned the spider because the design is basically that. So I'd rather just have a spider, and even then, I don't really want a spider either. Okay, I can't play with blowback guns anymore, and the reason why is that when you pull the trigger and the whole hammer slides forward, and then it gives that hit, it messes with me. Um, I had a F1 Illustrator, serial number 6968. Imagine why I can remember that number. Baha. But I had a F1 Illustrator, which was absolutely amazing. That gun I wish I kept. But I traded it for a War Games product, Sniper 2, and I haven't looked back since. That gun. Like I would rather have a pump, a good pump, than a blowback semi. But things were a little different back then, but those F1 illustrators were absolutely amazing. Explore Paintball is saying, or am I going to do uploads to Spotify too? I will in the future. There's a whole lot of backlog that I have, but I'm not downloading these I'm not downloading my test videos for the next month or two onto Spotify because honestly, these shows are crap. I know they're crap, but it's all about learning curve and it's all about principle. Um, when you're making paintball videos, if you get into podcasting and things like that, there's a few rules that you learn. First rule is never stick to your plan because whatever your plan is, it's going to suck. That's rule number one. Um, you just got to go with it and evolve because you think you know what you want to do. And then once you get into it, things change. And that's the way I'm approaching this version of Popular Unknown. I am starting from scratch. This is a whole new show. It's just the old me and the old logo, but I want different, I want better, I want improved. But right now I'm just in the learning stages and I just want to include you in the learning stages because quite frankly I miss you guys. So, yeah, Explore Paintball, I want a PGP. I have owned 3 PGPs. I love them all. Or I love them all, but I only have 1 left. And Robert Howard says, I've got 2 F4s in the vault. Very, very cool. And Explore Paper says, I've done a couple podcasts. Got to edit the last one I filmed. Good on you. All right. So, and I do apologize, Explore Paintball. All I'm seeing is that, and I'm not actually seeing the name. And I'm doing so many things at once. I'm having a hard time remembering names with shows. So if you want to drop your first name, I'll refer to you as that instead of calling you Explore Paintball, or I can just keep saying Explore Paintball and keep plugging you. Or how's that? Anyway, whatever. Or is it thumb up here and then finger? finger gun this way. I don't trying to be funny and I'm failing. All right, moving on to the next question. And this is from Danny Lausen, fellow Canadian. Woohoo. What brought you into paintball and what's your favorite thing about it? Okay, so as a kid, I grew up in Oshawa, but I also lived up north in a little town called Wilberforce all summer long from the minute school let out until the minute school went back in. So I spent months at a time up in, I want to say Northern Ontario, but now I've been to really Northern Ontario. So my American friends, you won't understand, but you need to know that if Canada ever became the 51st state, Texas would be the 5th largest state in the union, assuming that each province becomes a state because Quebec is bigger, Ontario is bigger, I believe BC is bigger. None of it is definitely bigger. Yeah. So, in any case, um, yeah, Canada's huge. Let's put it that way. And so I would live about 2 hours north, and if you go 2 hours from any major city in Canada, you're usually heading straight into wilderness, and when I say wilderness, I'm not talking about what I see a lot in the American states. A lot of forests in the American states are all planted, so you'll see rows of trees that are all very symmetrical. Well, in Canada, when you get into the woods, very rarely do you see trees in rows. It's all fresh, as is, was, is, been around forever. It's thick, it's nasty, it's great. I mean, I love it. That's how I prefer woods to be, but it's not structured. So I spent all my childhood running around in the woods playing guns. Cops and robbers, cowboys and Indians, which I know isn't politically correct to say anymore, but that's what it was called then, and it feels weird to change the name of it now. Plus, saying cowboys and Native Canadians or Native Americans, it doesn't ring the same. So I do apologize for any of my Native friends, but that's what the game was called. And I find it weird too when I'm in the States, the way the indigenous people like to refer to themselves is very different than what Canadians tend to refer to themselves. Like I love going to powwows. I was introduced to those a couple years ago and absolutely loved going to the powwows. But you go to Border Food and there's these things called Indian tacos. You know, you watch Shorzy or what's it called? Letterkenny, which is Canadian humor, and they say getting a BFI coming. What's that? Big effing Indian. Like anyway, so I'm not trying to be racist. It's just I can't keep track of the proper terms. Anyway, irregardless. So when I was up north, that was what I would play, and my friends would come from Ottawa or Kingston or Toronto or whatever, and I'd only see them for a weekend, and then I wouldn't see them for a while. But that's what we'd play, and that was my absolute favorite game. I went to the Toronto Sportsman Show in the early '80s, and paintball came around, and it was called the Great Canadian Adventure Game, which was our version of the survival game, I guess. Had the hat and everything. I got an old picture. I'll try to post it up. Um, and I always wanted to play, but wasn't old enough. And in the '80s, you had to be an adult to play paintball. It wasn't for kids or birthdays or anything like that. They wouldn't let you on the field if you were under 16. And quite often, depending on the field, they wouldn't let you on the field, at least up here, under the age of 18. Like, you had to know the owner if you were younger to get in, and that was only special circumstances because of the laws up here are different and they suck compared to American laws. I'm sorry, and if I'm offending fellow Canadians, it's the truth. You know it, I know it. Unfriend me if you have to. I really don't care. I'm past that crap. Anyway, so when I had the opportunity to learn to play in 89 out of high school, I took it. Somebody opened up a store right downtown Oshawa called Mad Mike's, and he had a field out in the Ganaraska Forest called the Great White Bear Hunt. Great White Bear Hunt. Speaking of politically incorrect, woo! So I went there and I went to the store and I bought all my gear right off the bat. I just knew I was going to love it. I bought UVEX goggles. I got the big mask, PMI mask, not the green Woodstalker, but the big wraparound one. And I got a Nightmare Competition short barrel. I already owned full sets of tiger stripes and stuff from playing around up north. Hide and go seek around Wilberforce in the mid 80s was a sport all unto itself because we played in the dark in the woods and there were bears. That's how I grew up. Anyway, yeah. So I got out and that's when I started playing, and I played my very first weekend. I played the second weekend. Second weekend I played, I got invited to the Cannonballers paintball team, which was a 25-man challenge team because that was what was cool at the time. And I was one of their designated flankers because I was really, really skinny and really, really fast. And I was really, really fast on my feet in the woods, just from years and years and years of playing in the woods all my life. So that's how I got started. And within a month, I was reffing the field, a local field, not the Great White Bear Hunt, but a different one. I reffed the Great White Bear Hunt as well. I've lost track of how many fields I've reffed at this point. And I have ref fields in multiple countries. I've reffed in the States, I've reffed in Canada, and not just big games. I've gone down to the States for little things. I've helped set up fields. Yeah. But in answer to your question, what's my favorite thing about it? My favorite thing about it is the community. It's the friendships. It's the minute you step on the field, every other person on that field is instantaneously your friend. At least that's the way I see it. Now, are there rivals? Absolutely. But when I go into like the mall, everybody's strangers. I have nothing in common. I don't want to make eye contact. I don't want to talk to people. I just walk through the mall, do my thing. Grocery store, same thing. I just want to go buy my food, get out. I walk onto a paintball field, I make eye contact with everybody. I'm excited to see everybody. I don't know you, like, "Hey, how you doing?" Or if I recognize you before, it's like, I'll point, like, "Good to see you again," that sort of thing. I immediately think everybody on a paintball field is a friend. I know that's not true. I know that I've got my rivals and you all have your rivals as well. But yeah, that's what keeps me in is the community. Like Danny, for you, for example, I don't think we've ever actually met in person, but you play paintball. I play paintball. We've talked on Facebook and we've talked off, like, just about paintball, and you're my friend, but I don't know if I've ever actually that's true. I think I did meet you quickly at Uh, that Asylum game. We have met personally. Anyway, moving on. So that is the answer to that question. Holy smokes, we've got a whole lot of messages I got to catch up on. Okay, so Explorer says, Chris Struck. Absolutely. I remember who you are now. Thank you very much, Chris. Um, and Rob Hansen says, when's Connor going to be your permanent co-host? I'm not sure I want to do a permanent co-host because with this software, it's a little different. And plus, I really like having I really like limiting the number of people that are on the screen at any given time with a show because I find that if you have 4 guests or 5 guests, you've got the one mouthy person, which is either usually me or Fred Schultz. I got you, Fred. Bah! You've usually got the one mouthy person, and then you've got a couple people that want to talk, and then you've got that one person that's sitting in the corner who is just a little intimidated. He's not used to it. He's not they're not usually confident in talking, and they just sort of sit back. Or worse yet, they'll do this. They'll be texting away and they'll be doing their stuff on their phone, but they're not really engaging. And it just I don't know, that sucks the energy out of a show. Like I learned that when I did the Automag show saying that Automags are tournament legal. And that's when I had Tim Montresor on. And Tim Montresor actually spent a fair amount of that show on his cell phone while everybody was talking. Because I had a big group of people. And at the time, I thought big groups of people would be great, right? I'm very proud of that show. I'm very proud of what was accomplished. I'm very proud of everything about that show. But that show really taught me a lesson that you can't have too many people on the show at any given time because it wrecks the flow of the show. It's so much better when you have one guest or two and it's got a nice flow to it. Now, if there's a reason to have multiple guests, great. But if you've got two hosts, now you've got automatically got 3 people on and everybody's fighting for attention and it's distracting for the person that is watching. And I don't enjoy it that much myself. And so I try to keep it limited in that regard. All right. So we got let's go back to these things here. Uh Robert has to make each province its own state. Yeah, probably. I don't know what the telephone poles means. I missed that part. Oh, with the lineup and the trees. No, no. If you go by, you'll see pine trees, and all of a sudden, it'll look like the pine trees are corduroy. You can actually see where everything was cut down, and then they planted trees, and they planted all the trees in a straight line. It's not random. That's what I'm talking about. And then the one, so Kristen from Explore Paintball says the one field by me had a food truck called Baby Got Bannock was so good, right? Oh, there's this Indian fry bread with salted pork. If you guys ever get a chance to try that. Like fry bread with salted pork. I don't care what it sounds like. Imagine Krispy Kreme donut with a filled with nice bacon. Like it's the greatest sandwich of all time. I don't care what anybody says. That's all right. And Robert Harris says we are a very large merry band. Oh, sorry, we are a very large merry band of misfits. Yes, we are. All right, so that answers Danny's question. Now we've got Chris Martell, and he's actually got 3 questions for me. He's got, what's the most memorable story a fellow player has ever told you about meeting a pro? And the second question is, what's the coolest paintball thing a player has done for a random guy in your presence? And the third question is, what's the coolest thing a random player has ever done for me? All right. They're very difficult questions, and they'd be easier for an average player, but I don't know if I count myself as an average paintball player. Um, and I'm not saying I'm good. This is not that. It's the average paintball player hasn't been playing as long as I have. The average paintball player hasn't been to as many fields as I have. The average paintball player hasn't been to as many played in multiple countries or refed in multiple like it's the average player doesn't have butt or on a speed dial. Do you know what I mean? Like so um yeah. So I think my answers to these questions are going to be a little disappointing, but on the flip side, um I hope you understand where I'm coming from. And this is not me having a big head. I've been very, very lucky in the sense that I've had some great opportunities and just who I am and how I am. I have the ability to go up to people and introduce myself. And I like to think that they like me because they keep talking to me. So I, we'll go with that. All right. So let's break these down here because these are going to be kind of difficult. So, first of all, what is the most memorable story a fan fellow player has ever told me about meeting a pro? Unfortunately, when it comes to memorable stories about fans meeting pros, I hate to admit it, but we've all met pro paintball players and their ego is twice as large as mine, and they have to be. And I get that. Like, that's how you compete. Like, you have to believe you're that freaking good. Um, so a lot of the stories that are immediately coming to my head that I do not want to repeat are pros that disregard the little guy that comes up to them, says, "Hey," that's excited, whatnot. I mean, I've even had that experience myself when I've tried talking to Dynasty a few times, which is one of the reasons why you never see me talk about Dynasty much. I respect the hell out of them, but I don't know. They don't seem to give me the time of day, and so I respect that and I leave them be. Now, that being said, when you're at a tournament, and this is in defense of the pros, when you're at a tournament and your head's supposed to be in the game, the last thing you have is a bunch of people going, "Hey, do this, hey, doing that." You got to stay focused on your call signs, on what like you got to stay zoned. So I'm not calling anybody, I'm not insulting anybody. This is not a put down to pros, and it's definitely not a put down to dynasty because let's face it, they win. So they get into their zone, they're in that mindset. I've been in the dynasty pits while they were playing. I've had that opportunity and they got to stay focused. So this is not an insult, but that being said, the most memorable things that I hear about fans or fellow players meeting pros, usually it's negative. The positives usually come from, oh, this player donated it, gave me a jersey, or this player signed my whatever, or this player gave me a pod, or just little things, which are great, but there's so many they don't become memorable to me. Do you know what I mean? And God bless those players that do that. The pros that take the time to talk with people. And I really wish paintball players at tournaments were more approachable as a general rule. But I mean, it's not like they owe people anything either. I mean, they're just people. They're going to a field. They want to play a game. They're playing at top level. They want to hang out with their friends just like the rest of us. And you got to get in, you got to do your thing, you got to get out. And because, you know, it's work, like a lot of us, when we hit the paintball field, me specifically, it's not work, it's fun. But pros don't win if they treat it just as fun. Now they can be enjoying what they're doing, but they gotta focus, they gotta work out, they gotta train, they gotta drill. Like there's just so much. And eventually you need to just relax, come down, you know? And then if you get taken out of the tournament early, there's loving to win and then there's hating to lose. And most pro paintball players hate to lose more than they love to win. So when they lose after the fact, you got to give them a chance to mellow out. So I don't really have an answer for that. It's too, I don't know. What's the coolest paintball thing a player has done for a random guy in my presence? Well, Chris, you've always been super cool with how you lent out extremely expensive auto mags to rental players. That's awesome. Um, it's not just you. I've seen that happen many, many times. I wasn't in the presence of Andy Starrett of the I Remembered Foundation when he met a young female player that reminded him a lot of Allie herself, and he flat out just gave her the gun that he had, which was a custom one-off made specifically for the foundation and him, which is pretty wild. I mean, it's not nowhere near the financial monetary value of the automags that I've seen you lend to players, which is awesome, by the way. Like, but the coolest thing a paintball player has done for a random guy in my presence. Honestly, when it comes to things like that, when I see pros, when I say pro, I'm talking tournament paintball players. I'm not talking actual pro players, but it could be them. But when you have a very experienced paintball player and you have a young kid coming on the field and they're new and they don't know what to do, and the player will just come up, it's like, you got this, I got you. Don't worry. Let's go. I got your back. That to me, that to me is the coolest thing that happens on the paintball field, period. It's not adults getting things is one thing, but when you've got a kid who's the epitome of innocence on the paintball field, terrified, scared, uncertain, timid, like just paintballs flying around them. They haven't matured well enough to fully appreciate all the fight or flight response and the adrenaline, and like it's overwhelming for those of us that have played for a long time, which I'm sure you'll understand. We walk out on that paintball field and we feel the adrenaline, but we know how to handle it, and we don't lose our crap. Like it's just you come in, all of a sudden your senses max out a little bit, and it's like, all right, glad to be here. Here we go. Awesome. But when you've got like a little kid happening, that's what those are the coolest moments. Um, and I've seen it a lot. Hell, I've done it a few times. Um, but to me, that's the ultimate greatest thing in paintball, that mentorship. I guess that's the shortened version of everything I'm trying to say is when you see an experienced player go to an inexperienced player and mentor them and help them, that's that's the best. Um, for myself, probably one of, and this has been playing through my head a lot recently. Uh, for myself, I had a follower. I say had, unfortunately, he passed away in, I want to say 2022, from a heart attack. And his name was Joe. I knew him as Taco. Um, I believe his nickname was Taco Time, but and yes, Mexican, but love that guy. Like, I can't say enough great things about Taco. He was so excited just to see me. Um, he wasn't a super avid paintball player, but he was a very avid paintball community person. He had a little bit of gear and he liked to borrow stuff and he liked to hang out with Andy. He'd worked with Andy Sturrett, by the way, of the All Remembered Foundation. Um, and that's how I got the chance to meet him. And so when I got to fly to uh, Florida for World Cup, he just wanted to hang around with me. Like, it was flattering and uncomfortable and welcoming. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's not like he was a puppy dog. He was a full-grown adult male, but for some reason, meeting me from Canada, like him and we just I don't know, I just really, really, really like the guy, and I regret that I didn't have as much time as I to spend with him as I could have, because I always felt that, you know, I'll see him next trip. I'll see him anyway. So we were there, and he wanted to buy a paintball gun, and he was like, "What do I get?" And so we walked the vendors row at World Cup, and I told him, I said, "Listen, don't listen to what everybody else says. The gun picks the player doesn't pick the gun or marker, sorry. Um, what's comfortable, what suits you, how do you want to play? You're going to evolve. You want something that can evolve with you." So we looked at the axes and we looked at the planet eclipses, um, ethos and things like that. Like, and we looked at masks and so I helped him try to hold and whatnot. And he was amazed at how I would just walk up to the booth and I'd be like, "That one right there, can I see it, please? Can you hand it down to me, please? Thank you." And the person was like, "Yeah, sure," would hand it to me. And I would hand it to him. And I was like, "Hold it up." And I'm like, "Hold it up, see how it fits, tuck in, tight in," just things like that. And mentorship. That was one of my greatest days at paintball. And I think that was one of his greatest days too. And we didn't even play. And I can't ask him. He made comment to that a time or two, which is one of the reasons, like, out of the blue, so which I know it meant a lot to him, and it meant a lot to me. Um, Sorry. I do apologize, but with, Frank Montresor passing and my cousin and talking about Joe, it's kinda anyway, so I think that when you mentor somebody, that's the that's the coolest thing I've seen in people's presence. I'm sorry, excuse me, you guys, for a second, I do apologize. Sorry, I can't do my show if I can't see. All right. Last but not least, what's the coolest thing a random player has ever done for me? Well, from a monetary value, being surprised with uh, a 1 of 15 Tim Montresor Ultra Shocker in the mail, that is by far the coolest thing from a monetary standpoint. Like, that blew my mind. And then for my son to get an all carbon fiber custom made auto mag with carbon fiber barrel and carbon fiber loader, and or at least carbon fiber looking, like, to do that for my son, that's better still. But that wasn't for me, that was for my son. But so that hands down has to be in the talks. But those are monetary things. And as great as they are, and they really are, like, I to this day, I will look at both of them just sitting there and be like, "I can't believe that this has happened." But I've had so many paintball players do so many cool things for me over the years, and I've done cool things for them too. Like, it's not like it's all about me. Like, I think people like to do cool stuff for me because I like doing cool stuff for people. Um, Prime example, when I was at World Cup last, um, and I had the Ultra Shocker, or yeah, I had the Ultra Shocker and I was playing. The team that was on deck before after me, their gun went down, and I handed them my shocker, which was running perfect, and his gun went down. They were gonna have to go to a man short, and I'm just like, "Here, take my shocker, go, play, win, just give it back to me," and they were blown away by that. So, it's reciprocated, but, oh, man, that's this camera. God, sorry. Um, it's reciprocated, but I think that when I think about the coolest thing that's anybody's ever done for me, when I got the PMI-3, I belonged to the Cannonballers, and I didn't really know them very well, but at that time, there was picnic tables at the field. It wasn't Fields were a lot different then. If you were lucky, you had a tent or an ice hut or a shed that was and then if you were lucky, there would be some picnic tables, and after that, you did everything out of the trunk of your car. People would walk around, there was no, barrel plugs, they didn't even exist at that time, at least not up here. Um, and a couple like, I'd gotten the PMI-3 and my team captain just sort of pulled me aside and said, "Come on, Steve, I need to show you how to make this work." And he spread out a nice big, beach towel over the picnic table, and we just started taking the paintball gun apart, right down to every last nut, and just helping me learn how it works and explained how the whole thing worked together and putting it all back together. And I think I mention this because it meant so much to me, that moment, that's what that moment made me the player that I am now because I want other people to have that ability. So that moment formed who I am and that moment probably is why I became a podcaster and my show and all the things I've done. And I don't think that that has a monetary value to it, but that moment was priceless. So I can't take away from the shocker that I was gifted, and I really can't take away from the all carbon fiber automag that my son was gifted because those moments were that's just so cool and humbling and thank you that like Jim Lively sent me a care package all about with all sorts of stuff from PMI past and Fred Schultz has reached out to me and we started Stronghold. And hopefully we're going to get that up and running really, really soon now that we've got some governments that are going to make things a little easier, I think. Wish me luck, guys. Um, but I think I have to say the absolute coolest moment of any random player doing something for me that I barely know would be my old captain, because I'd only known him a couple weeks. I didn't even know his last name, really. You guys know how that goes when you're on a team with people. Like, it's guys are like that. We can be best friends, and I have no idea what his name is. Just see him at the field every week. But when he laid out that table and we sat down and he broke apart his PMI3 and showed me how to break apart mine and just walked me through the whole thing, that that's probably the coolest moment. And that's probably one of the most formative moments of all my paintball experiences. So, hope that answers all your questions. We have been live for almost an hour. I got to be honest, I thought the show would last maybe 20 minutes. So, thank you guys for the questions. If you like this show, please comment that you'd like to see more question and answers. I think I would prefer a question and answer period with a guest. So we'll work on that, because I think it would be interesting to see how the guest experiences compare to my experience. I think that would be a big, big, big deal. So yeah, please comment. If you can, please like, and please, 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 please subscribe to the channel. It's really going to help me down the road once everything is all in order. So thank you all so much for watching. Keep your paint dry, and as always,